So, Matt, this grasshopper walks into a bar, and the bartender goes, "Hey, man, we have a drink named after you." And the grasshopper goes, "Really? You've got a drink named Larry?"
Good.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales.
All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm pretty good.
Good. So I'll go ahead and apologize up front. My voice is kind of whack this week. Last week, I told you I was starting to get sick. Well, I did.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the tail end of it, but my voice is all whack today. Ashley asked me how I was doing, and I said, well, I feel, pretty good, better than I have. And she goes, well, you don't sound it. I was like, I know.
You're like, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, babe. But no, I agree. My voice is kind of, it's kind of gruff. But anyway, before we get into it, we'll say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting. Also, check out our sponsors. If you want to use one of our sponsors' codes and links, check in the bottom of, or actually it's the top of our show notes. Check in the top of our show notes, and you can see where I've hyperlinked to the sponsor for that episode with our code. If there is a code, get you something nice. We have some very cool sponsors here recently and really good deals. So go in there. You help out the show by doing that, because if you get something from them, we don't directly get money from them, but they will come back and sponsor another episode of Graveyard Tales, so it helps us out in the long run. Also, if you want to help us directly, go to patreon.com/Graveyard Tales. Now, we have 3 different levels, 1, 5, and 10, and you get a lot for your money on Patreon. And I'm not just saying that. We have a bank of back episodes that you can go listen to. Our $10 a month, they get our second show Side Quest, where it's me and Matt just kind of goofing and trying to make the other one laugh or go, really? Or something like that. You get the audio and video version of that. Plus, our $5 and $10 levels get audio and video versions of ad-free main episodes if we have an ad that week. Plus, they get the audio and video versions of a bonus episode for the week. And our $1, they get the audio version of the bonus episode. So no matter what level you choose, you're going to get a bonus episode that week. And like I said, we have a ton of them and a ton of different topics over there. So, Matt, that's all I've got for housekeeping. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
All right, so tonight we're going to go back up into New England, which, as I was talking to Amanda last night, she was like, New England's pretty freaking haunted anyway, just as a rule. And and I said, you know what? It is. And it's funny because, how we always talk about how old Europe is. And we've got all these places that are haunted in Europe, these castles and stuff, and they're like 1,000 years old. Well, for Europeans, New England is the oldest part of, the United States. So it makes sense that New England would be pretty haunted. But tonight's location that we're going to discuss is in Ashland, Massachusetts. And it is called the Stones Public House. Also, it was named the Stones Inn at one point. So it's kind of a haunted hotel at one point, kind of a haunted restaurant and bar now. But it's got some pretty unique personalities.
Yeah.
That haunt this place. As I was going through these stories, I was like, man, I don't know that I've ever seen a place that had so many spirits with individual personalities, you know. I mean, you know, they all kind of do the same thing, but these are a little bit different. So,
yeah.
But it's a pretty cool place, and with any of these places, we always take a look at the history of the building, history of the town, history of the property that it's on, history of the people involved in its development and construction, because all of that plays into why or why not this place may be haunted. So, Adam, tell us about the history of Ashland and Stone's Public House.
All right. So as we always say, go check the bottom of our show notes for our sources. You can find where we found all this information, and you can keep going if you are interested in the Stone's Public House. You can find more information that maybe was too far into the minutia for us to put on here because of Adam's ADHD. But
it just starts just going, you know, just randomly like, hey, look at this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a ghost of a frog that lives over here.
Oh, look, squirrel. Now, the Stone's Public House sits at 179 Main Street in Ashland, Massachusetts. So we need to first look at Ashland, Massachusetts real quick. Now, Ashland was in the earlier times of the area, it was a stopping point on a major Indian trail, which later became known as Bay Path, that connected Cambridge and Connecticut. And it was here that a community of Nantick Indians was established as the village of Magunkoquag. Sorry, I'm doing my best, in about 1659. So this area has been a passing point and a point where people would stop during a travel for a long, long time, hundreds of years. And an Indian village, the Nantick Indians, set up a village there in 1659. So it has been a settlement basically since 1659. But Ashland was settled by European settlers in around the early 18th century or so. So Ashland used to be called Unionville when it was first made into a town. So if you look up the history, kind of go in the Wayback Machine, you won't see Ashland, but you'll see Unionville, which it's the same town, but it was incorporated in 1846. The town itself, though, is younger than most of the towns around it. So it didn't become an incorporated town, you know, around the time that the other ones did. It was later on that it became a town, you know, a recognized town, and was incorporated. Now, Ashland, Massachusetts is known as Clock Town because it's home of the Telecron Corporation that makes electric clocks, and it's the birthplace of the synchronous electric clocks by Henry Warren.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't know that until doing this research. Another thing I didn't know was Ashland was actually the starting point for the Boston Marathon from 1897 to 1924. So in 1924, the starting point changed, and I think they still run through Ashland, but it used to be the starting point. Now, let's look at the Stone's Public House. So it's an inconspicuous 2-story red brick building. If you didn't know the history of it, you just, hey, that's a cool looking old building there. Now, the building of the Stone's Public House was started in 1832 by a man named John Stone. He called his business the Railroad House.
Yeah.
John was a farmer, and captain in the local militia, but he was also a pretty smart businessman. He owned most of the land that was in the center of what they called Unionville at the time. So he owned a lot of this land that was the town. Well, he heard that the railroad wanted to come through that area, and they wanted to come through the center of the town, which, like I said, was basically right through the center of his property.
Right, yeah.
So what did he do? He said, well, I'm going to build a hotel that will sit right next to the railroad tracks.
Pretty smart. I mean,
right?
He knew this is going to bring a lot of people through here.
Mm-hmm.
I might as well capitalize on it, by providing a service.
If they're going to run railroad tracks through my land, I might as well make some money off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the railroad house, and at the time, the property had a barn on it and a cow yard, and later a home for his family. Well, it opened on September 20th, 1834, to what they say was an enthusiastic crowd of around 300 people. It was the official platform for the dedication of the new railroad featuring Governor Davis when it opened as well. Now, John ran the railroad house for less than 2 years. Then he started leasing the building to a bunch of different innkeepers. But he still lived on the property, though. And, even after he leased it to other people, he was still, it's still his land. So he's still living on that property. He's just not running the railroad house. Now, John died in 1858, and after his passing, a man by the name of W.A. Scott ended up buying the business in 1868. Well, over the years, the building fell into disrepair, and the man that was credited with helping to return the building to its former glory is Leonard Cappy Fournier. He bought the building in 1976, and Cappy is also the man credited with first exploring the paranormal side of the building there.
Yeah.
But real quick, before we get into that paranormal side, let's look at John Stone and the family. So the Stone family can be traced. The family Stone. Yeah. Which I didn't think of that until you just said it. Well, the Stone family can be traced back to 1635. When they came over from England, John's great-grandfather Gregory Stone settled in Watertown, Massachusetts. Now, John and his wife had 7 children, and they lived on Union Street. Well, he was a farmer by trade. He served in the militia, like I said, and he rose to the rank of captain. Now, Captain John Stone also owned a large portion of the land, which is now downtown Ashland, like I was saying. So, I have said this before, Matt. I wish I could go back in time and buy up a bunch of land and just make sure I willed it, down into the family to where I would get it eventually. Yeah. But
oh, you want to time travel and then come back and be like,
yeah, look at what I got.
I'm waiting on it.
Exactly. I planned this out, man. Once time travel hits, I will own most of Texas.
Yeah.
Well, he was also aware, not only with owning what's now downtown Ashland, but he was aware of the Boston and Worcester Railroad that was planning stages and was wanting to run right through his property, like I said. And although John Stone is the name most associated with the hotel, he was there for little less than 2 years, like I was saying. So 1835 was a transition year for the property, and Captain Stone transferred operations to his son, Napoleon. He had a son named Napoleon Stone.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I would like the name Napoleon or not.
I know. It's odd. I came across that, and I was like, why would you name your kid Napoleon?
I know. And now you'd get called Nappy, and I don't want that.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, Napoleon Dynamite. Well, he continued to live, quote, only a few rods to the west of the hotel until his death, like I said, December 11th in 1858. So despite not running the property for more than 2 years, he was still a big part of it. He not only built it, but he passed it along to his family, and he lived very close to it.
And the fact that he was not a hands-on type owner, that's going to come up in some of the stories we're going to talk about.
Right.
So there's a lot of talk about, like I said, the number of spirits that actually haunt Stone's Public House and the different spirits and their quirky personalities based on how they behave. So let's look at a couple of these. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to save this part for later.
Okay.
What I was going to lead with, I've decided,
Calling an audible.
I've teased it enough, and we're gonna save it.
All right.
But let's this story right here. I love it because I have always said, when you have an eyewitness to something like this, whether it's something paranormal, UFO, cryptid, whatever, and this person works in a position where they have something to lose.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
In this case, police officers. You know, as a police officer, you garner some respect from the community that you protect and serve. Your fellow officers, your captains, whatever. So it probably would not behoove you to come up with some wild tale of seeing a ghost.
Right.
Okay? Because, you know, you go into your captain and say, hey, we went and checked on this place, and I think it's haunted. We saw a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think their reaction is going to be initially? So, if you're
they're probably
willing,
thinking you're screwing around or
exactly
something, you know, and they want you to be serious.
Yeah. So if you're willing to come forward and say, this is what I saw,
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a tendency to believe you.
Yeah.
You know, because why would you risk your reputation by fabricating a story like this? You know, you're going to tell what you saw.
That's true.
So this happened in the mid-'80s, and Joe Magnani was working as a police officer in Ashland. Now, he and his partner, Steve Zanella, were called to check out Stone's Public House in the middle of the night because a door had been left open in the back of the restaurant and bar. So as the two officers entered the building, everything seemed okay, at least on the first floor. But Magnani reports having an eerie feeling as they went upstairs. Now, the two reported that they began hearing odd noises, but they chalked it up to the significant age of the building. You know,
Right.
Old houses, old buildings, they creak and pop and settle and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
So
they are noisy.
they heard it, but they were like, it's just the building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not hearing anything that weird. Now, when they got to the top floor, and this is where guests had once been able to rent rooms, they opened up one of the doors, and Zanella suddenly jumped back. So Joe Magnani immediately turned and said, "What's wrong?" You know, I mean, shoot, you see your partner jump back like that, you think, oh, crap, there's somebody in there.
Yeah, getting attacked.
Steve turned around and looked at him and said, "You don't see her?" And at the time, Joe had not seen the ghost of a little girl staring back at them. But Steve had. So the figure that Steve Zanella is presumed to have seen was that of 11-year-old Mary Smith, who had been killed by a train that came past the inn in 1863. So as the two officers made their way out of the building, Magnani says he turned from the parking lot and looked up at the windows on the upper floor. And there he saw the silhouette of a young girl standing in front of one of the windows.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's got to freak you out because, you know, your partner just saw it. You're walking out and you look back and you can verify that he saw something. Yeah. And you see it in the window.
And I've always wondered, because we've heard stories like this in the past, but I've always wondered how, like, what causes one person to be able to see it and the other person not when they're standing there looking in the same direction? You know, is that person more sensitive? Is the spirit able to, you know, say, I don't want this person seeing me?
Yeah.
Or is it the skepticism thing that we've talked about before, where if you're too much of a skeptic, you aren't going to be open to seeing these things? And it took maybe his partner seeing it for him to start thinking about it enough and it get through to him where he was then able to see her as he was leaving.
Yeah. Makes sense. And I've always kind of thought that because you rarely hear stories where an apparition is visible for a long period of time, it's usually just a few seconds, that maybe Steve saw her in that quick response. And by the time Joe, even if it was just a few seconds, was able to look into the room, she was already gone.
True.
Because I just playing devil's advocate here. If my partner jumps back, my first thought is I'm going to look at them and not in the room. True. Now, as a police officer, maybe that's not how you're trained. But nonetheless, your reaction would be to look at your partner. And then you look in the room, and maybe that was enough time for the apparition to have moved or to have vanished or whatever.
That's a good point, yeah.
But these aren't the only guys that have seen Mary's apparition. In fact, her apparition is fairly common. Mary has also been spotted peeking out of the windows of a storage room that's near the kitchen. She is also reported to have been seen in the attic, where, dig this, the bloody dress she wore when hit by the train is framed and displayed.
What?
Yeah. You want to hang on to a kid ghost? This is how you hang on to a kid ghost.
Yeah. Why would you frame that thing?
You keep the clothing that they were killed in.
Yeah.
And display it.
Yeah.
You're asking for it.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. And I couldn't find anything that would hint as to why they did this. My guess is it was maybe a memorial to her.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, if you want to have a memorial, have somebody paint a picture, put a plaque up there.
Not the bloody dress.
Not the bloody dress.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like going, oh, someone was murdered in this room, and here's the murder weapon we have on display.
Right.
What?
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're asking for it if you do this.
Here's the piece of carpet that they died on.
Here's the rope that they hung themselves with. Why did you keep this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But staff and visitors alike will report the sound of a young person's running footsteps. I guess they're quicker paced. That's how you would know it's a younger person and not an adult. And they're typically heard on the second floor. One staff member reports hearing someone jumping at the top of the staircase on the second floor. That sounds like something a kid would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most adults are like, don't jump near the stairs.
Yeah. If I might break a hip if I jump near the stairs.
Yeah. But that staff member says as they went down the stairs, they felt someone following them, like coming right behind them, just like a kid would do.
It's weird. All right, Matt. So let's talk about tonight's sponsor, HelloFresh. Now, we've talked about HelloFresh before, but in case this is your first time hearing it, with HelloFresh, you can get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And I'm going to tell you, Matt, we got one just last week. Man, that came in handy because we are so busy here lately. I don't know what's going on, but we are running all over like crazy. And we've had to order out more than normal.
We have to.
And then we got the HelloFresh, and it was a lifesaver because we were able to make good tasting, healthy meals in no time flat that Michael will actually eat. Michael loves HelloFresh, and we can get him to help us cook them too. Get in there and cook me a HelloFresh, and he can do it.
Yeah. And, now that we've switched from basketball straight into softball, inevitably one of the kids is like, what are we having?
Yeah, right.
Want that. They never say that when it's HelloFresh. So are you tired of trying to figure out what's for dinner every night, especially on the busy nights? Get dinner done the easy way with HelloFresh. It's easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week, delivered right to your door. Their lineup of prep and bake meals come together with minimal mess and only 5 minutes of prep. So your oven does most of the work, not you. Save valuable times with fewer trips to the grocery store thanks to HelloFresh Market. There's over 100 add-on items that you can add to your weekly box, like quick breakfasts. Man, how much better is that?
Right.
Trying to get kids to school, you need something quick, but you want it to be good and nutritious?
Yep.
HelloFresh quick breakfast, do it. And packable snacks.
That's
beverages,
great.
Yeah, and more. So if you guys want to get in on this, if you're tired of having to have that conversation of, well, what do you want? What do you want? And get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/graveyard10FM. That's GRAVEYARD10FM. That's one item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/graveyard10FM.
That's right. You can get 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/graveyard10FM. GRAVEYARD10FM. That's 10 free meals. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Now, another spirit that's often cited at the public house is that of Mr. Bert Phillips. Now, Mr. Phillips in 1890, after having a few too many cocktails at the bar, he staggered out of the building and, like Mary Smith, was killed by a train.
Oh, geez.
Now, this is the downfall of having an inn, bar, restaurant right up against the railroad tracks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you come out and the train is like right there. And, you know, you get a drunk, stagger out, chances are he's going to stagger right across the train tracks. Now, Bert's spirit has become known as a bit of a prankster. And he likes to pull jokes on unsuspecting staff and visitors. his ghost has been known to turn faucets on and off, tap frightened guests on the shoulder. This one gets me. And even holding staff's hands down under the ice when they are filling ice buckets. So you reach down in the ice to scoop out and fill your bucket, and something grabs you and holds your hand down under the ice.
Dude, do you know how much that would freak you out? Like
this would be my last day of employment at Stone's Public House.
Right.
I don't care. I don't want anything grabbing me like that.
Right.
I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. Grabbing you and like stopping you from moving.
Yeah.
In anything like that, that would freak me out.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's just my hand in ice. Like, if you're like, my hand is stuck, it feels like somebody's grabbing me. What is going on?
Yeah.
And
if I worked there and somebody told me this story had happened to them, I would be like, I am never, ever getting ice out of that thing.
Right.
It's not happening. I'm sorry. You know, somebody else can be on ice duty. Yep. I'm out.
You're on your own. I'm not feeling that ice.
Now, let's see. Okay. The spirit of one of the hotel maids, Sadie, has also been seen. There has been the spirit of one Sam Thompson, who was the cook, and Will the bartender. They wander around the restaurant, possibly trying to continue to do the jobs that they did while they were alive. But we're going to come back to these three, because let's get into a little bit of this of why they may really be sticking around.
All right. Okay?
One of the spirits that is reported to have been seen is that of John Stone himself, the owner, sticking around, making sure that his business is continuing to run. But remember, John was not a hands-on owner. His son, Napoleon, was the one that oversaw the day-to-day operations for the majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But Stone's ghost has been credited with putting his hands around the throats of employees and guests.
Good grief.
What?
Why is he so angry?
I know. Glassware has been thrown across the room, but I guess to make up for it, $10 bills have suddenly appeared in the tip jar, often after closing time. So there's no more customers. All of a sudden, there's a $10 tip in the jar.
It's like, sorry, I choked you. Here's $10.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry about that choking thing.
Yeah.
You know, well, I choked
really
you. Bert pulled your hand down under the ice. Here's $10 for your trouble.
Yeah. $5 an incident.
Thanks, Peckerhead. Yeah. Good Lord. Now, the spirit of John Stone often tries to get paranormal investigators to leave, as he tends to find them annoying. Some investigators feel that he may be afraid of the truth of an event coming out. What event is this? So during an investigation, a so-called ghost whisperer named Ralph Bibbo claimed that that the spirits told him that John Stone was a very bad man and that he killed one of the boarders who happened to win big in a card game in 1845.
Really?
Yeah. According to Bibbo, Stone supposedly lost about $3,000 in that card game.
Gee, that's a lot for them.
And after killing the man, Stone got help from 6 other men to bury the body in the basement.
That seems like an awful lot of people to get involved.
I'm telling you, 7 people
Yeah.
are accomplices to this murder.
Right.
And then they bury the body in the basement. Sounds a little off, doesn't it?
It does. It's like, get one other person, get your son, maybe, but
yeah.
just 6. Why do you need 6 dudes
I know.
to dig a hole?
I know. The funny thing is no historical records exist of this account.
Mm-hmm.
And many believe the story to be false, as John Stone was reportedly a devout Baptist and would not have been involved in a card game of any type, much less one that involved gambling.
Yeah, but I'm not even taking any of that into account. What makes me think it's false is the 6 dudes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it still seems way far-fetched.
Even if you are a terrible criminal, you're a terrible murderer, you know I'm not going to involve this many people. You know, that's 6 people that could go rat on me.
Yeah. Now, since we know that Stone wasn't really a hands-on type of owner,
he's pretty hands-on now, though.
Yeah.
Hands-on neck.
But especially at the time of this suspected incident, that the actual murderer was his son, Napoleon. And John was simply trying to protect his son. Again, you got too many people in on this.
Right.
Now, Cliff Wilson, who is president of the Ashland Historical Society, is one of those who does not believe the story that Bibbo tells. But Wilson does not discount the strange happenings at the Stone Public House. In fact, he's had one of his own. He was at the restaurant's bar interviewing a man who had come to town who had planned to write a book about the Stone House. Wilson spoke with the man for 2 hours and had a recorder with him to review the interview later. When he went to listen to the recording later that night at home, the audio was very hard to understand. Bar chatter could be heard, but not the 2 men speaking, who would have been the closest to the recorder. But at one point in the recording, you can hear someone clearly say, "Tiddy ran. He didn't make it."
What?
Yeah. Tiddy, Tiddy, Tiddy ran, and he didn't make it. Nobody's really sure what that means. They've tried to connect it to a few different people, but nothing really fits.
Who's gonna? Okay, that name. Who's going to admit that they have that name? First of all.
Well, they associate it with a gentleman whose last name was Tidwell.
Okay.
So, but again, there's no, they can't make any other connection other than there was a person that was associated with the Stone family, with the building that was named Tidwell, but that's about it. And it's a stretch at best. But this is what's on the recording. And it is strange that you can't hear Wilson or the man he was interviewing on the recording. You can only hear the fact that the bar, you know what, the bar chatter, you can hear people talking in the background, but you can't hear them. And of course, those 2 would have been the ones you would hear the most clearly.
Right.
So as for Stone, John Stone being a murderer, it's difficult to say. But the murder victim is thought to be a gentleman named Mike McPherson. Now, it is said that McPherson's spirit wanders restlessly in the halls, in the saloon, and in the restaurant. He is known to slam doors, which some people think may give him some kind of satisfaction. You killed me, and so I'm going to slam the door. Okay. But he wants his death to be made known, and he wants those responsible to pay a price. And he wants his body to be buried properly. He freely speaks to paranormal investigators and psychics, wanting them to know the truth of his demise and his anger about his own death. But he's not willing to admit his part in his own death, that he cheated at cards and, swindled three grand out of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, remember I talked about the bartender and the maid,
Mm-hmm.
that their spirits, kind of stick around. Sadie, Sam Thompson, and Will the bartender. Sam Thompson was the cook. Some people believe that Sadie and Sam and Will were witnesses to Mike McPherson's murder, and that their spirits are stuck because of the guilt that they harbor for helping cover it up.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know. There's no other evidence that this actually occurred.
Right.
Okay. Other than psychics saying that this is what has been communicated to them by the other spirits in the building.
So that either means that it is a story made up to explain these things, or if the spirits are intelligent, they're just having a goof with the paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered, how do we know if the spirits are the remnants of someone who's passed? When they tell you something, how do you know they're telling you the truth? Is there some kind of code that they have to tell you the truth? Probably
Exactly.
not. So could they be lying to you?
Mm-hmm.
Or could they be tired of ghost hunting and they're like, let's just tell them, this week.
Yeah.
And then next week it'll be something else.
Yep. But apparently these spirits, and they communicate pretty routinely, and EVPs are very common. And John Stone is one of the voices that they attribute to regular EVPs being captured in Stone's public house. Now, they say that occasionally, if a guest reminds John Stone of some scallywag ne'er-do-well that he had to deal with when he was alive, he will grab them by the neck and drag the startled man toward the door.
Drag, huh?
Yeah, and it says the staff will rescue the patron and explain to the spirit that the patron is honest and will pay for his meal and drink. Now, I hunted and hunted and hunted for any kind of personal experience that said they had been grabbed by a freaking ghost and drugged toward the door.
Mm-hmm. Which, if that had happened, you'd think it'd be out there.
It's a great story, okay? But let's think about the amount of energy it would take for a spirit to grab a grown man and drag them anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard of people getting pushed, shoved, scratched, tugged on, whatever. I don't think we have ever come across a story of somebody being physically grabbed and drugged anywhere for any distance.
No.
So I don't know. It sounds like to me a lot of these stories have just been embellished over the years to really make it sell, I'm not saying it's not haunted. There's a lot of visitors who have had weird experiences there that show that most likely there is some significant paranormal activity there. This sounds like an oversell to me. But I mean, maybe not. I couldn't find it. Maybe somebody can produce, hey, look, here is the person this happened to.
Yeah.
I would love it. I mean, I would absolutely love it.
Oh, dude,
I could not find it.
That would be great to get, proof that there was somebody that had this experience.
Yeah.
Not only to validate the tale, but also you got drug,
Right.
like legitimately drug by a spirit.
Yeah.
How did that really?
I mean, this is like poltergeist stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking Ed and Lorraine Warren type stuff. People being lifted off the floor and this kind of, it's stuff that we would normally associate with, a so-called, demon, infestation as opposed to just a typical haunting.
Right. Right.
This, and there's nothing, none of the staff claim to feel afraid or, feel like there's anything malicious going on. I'm like, well, he grabs you around the neck. I mean, come on. I mean, there's something that's very unnerving
malicious
about that.
I would say if
me
you
around the neck.
If you grab me around the neck and try to choke me, I would say that's pretty malicious. I would say you had malice in your intent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. But it sounds like in life, John Stone was one of these guys. He didn't put up with any bull crap. Okay. Especially if he was in fact a devout Baptist, he probably frowned on a lot of what, his patrons were involved in anyway.
True.
And that may have been why he didn't stick around but for a couple of years.
That's a good point. Yeah. He had enough of the debauchery.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Matthew Shapiro is a restaurant worker, and he has had some paranormal experiences. Matthew says one morning when they were opening, they found the fingerprints of a little girl on a mirror on the second floor. Now, they cleaned the mirrors, shouldn't have been any fingerprints. But he says what was strange about it is that it was much too high for a child to reach. It's like sometimes we would come in from a night where there was no one in there. And we come in the next day and there's baby handprints on the mirror.
Okay, that's creepy.
That's probably the creepiest thing he's ever seen. And yeah, I mean, some of the websites talk about the floating baby that leaves handprints. I'm like, floating baby ghosts. That's really weird. But handprints
makes me feel
way too
icky.
high on a large mirror, that would be much too tall for a child to have gotten up there. Would make you think, okay, so maybe they can float around or fly or something.
Floating baby ghost for some reason makes me feel icky, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Other staff members have reported the typical things that we see: disembodied voices, glasses breaking, lights turning on and off, and doors opening. Now, this one though, I think is pretty cool. Workers, people that have come in there and been working on remodeling or renovations, have discovered that their tools have been moved. Now, when they search the building, they wind up finding it in a weird location. Now, this could easily be dismissed as one of these, I know I left my tape measure right here, but then you forget that you took it to another room and used it in there, or somebody picked it up and borrowed it. But the stories usually involve a worker searching high and low for their equipment, only to return where they started and find it laying in the middle of the floor. And one worker says he was looking for his hammer and looked all over the place, and he came back and his hammer was in the middle of the hallway where he had not been working.
Okay, that's weird.
So, we've seen that a lot with especially these old hotels that have gone through renovations, and maybe the spirits aren't too happy about it, and they move or mess with the tools, hide them, all that kind of stuff. So we've seen this before, but for them to be returned in such a manner that was like, you were just in here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there when you came the last time.
That's just messing with you at that point.
But like I said, it does sound like there's enough evidence to say that the Stones Public House is most likely haunted. I think some of these stories have just taken on a life of their own.
Yeah.
And they've built and built and built. I don't know about you, Adam, but I have a really hard time. And look, we know psychics.
Yeah.
We have friends that are psychics. Okay. And I think they would agree, but I have a really hard time when psychics will tell a story that has been related to them that just seems so outlandish, and there's absolutely no historical evidence to support it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. They should be able to tie in something historical or, that has some evidence to it.
Yeah.
If it's a legitimate message that they're getting, there would be some way to validate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our friend Randy has told us several stories about, feeling something at a house or in a location, and then his feelings or what he perceived was validated by a factual event.
Right.
That he is told after the fact.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that you're like, whoa, it makes you take a step back. But if all I have to go on is an individual story telling me, oh, this is what they said.
Mm-hmm.
Really? That's kind of, there's nothing to back it up.
And I'm that way with psychics, mediums, or not.
True.
Like, if you tell me something, I'm going to have to try to validate it in some way or another. And it's not just with psychics, it's with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course I'm going to do it with a psychic, because I am, despite doing all this, I still am a skeptic at heart, but I'm a very open-minded skeptic,
Right,
I know there's stuff that happens. I just want to make sure that this is actually something weird that's happening and not something explainable or something you're making up.
Exactly. See, I'm that skeptic that says, I want to believe it so bad. But if I'm going to leave out of here and I'm going to relay this story to somebody else, I want to have some evidence to back it up. Otherwise, I'm just spreading the same, baloney that somebody else is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
We'll share these stories on here, but we're going to tell you straight out, hey, we could not verify this.
Right.
Well,
and a whole nother thing that bothers me is I do not like the term ghost whisperer.
I know, isn't that, it's kind of an odd thing.
As soon as you said that, I was turned off a little bit.
And that was not my term. That was the term from the article. So.
Yeah. And I don't know if he calls himself that or if the person writing the article just called him that.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But
it's hard to tell.
Can we stop using that? Because I've heard people say it before, and I don't like the term whatever whisperer.
Yeah.
That's done. We're done with that. It had a funny moment here and there, but let's stop with the I'm a ghost whisperer. I'm a horse whisperer.
I'm like, that term didn't exist until there was a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody's using this. I'm like, it was a TV show.
Yeah.
Like, they made that term up. There's nothing there. And yeah, I'm with you. It's not something that when I hear that, I immediately kind of go, I don't know. I'm not so sure about what you're going to tell me.
Right.
But like I said, there's plenty of staff and visitors who have reported weird things that go on in Stone's Public House that would make you believe that if you decided to take a visit up there, there is a chance that you're going to have a weird feeling. You may, get tapped on the shoulder, something may move. You may have something that, disappear from your, from your table or anything like that. There is a chance that you might experience something. But if you guys have had any experiences here, let us know. We've got a lot of listeners in New England. Maybe you've heard some other story. Maybe you know somebody that got drug around by John Stone's ghost. We would love to hear that.
Yes.
Let us know. And the best place to do that is in our Facebook group. It's called The Graveyard. Just go on there and search it. We've got thousands of people in there that share personal experiences. They share dad jokes in there. We even have people that ask for help that have, weird things going on in their home and they're not sure what to do.
Yep.
Check it out. It's a fantastic place. Don't forget to check out our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show and you can become a patron. And as Adam mentioned at the top of the show, we have a huge Patreon catalog, from just Patreon bonus episodes to side quest episodes. I mean, there is so much in there. If you enjoy hearing Adam and I talk about this kind of stuff or talk about anything under the sun,
right.
Jump in there in Patreon. You're going to be helping the show, and you're going to get a ton of bonus content. But I think that's all we got for tonight. It's a pretty interesting place, and like I said, stories that I certainly had not heard before.
Yeah, it very unique stories, and a place that I don't want necessarily to go by myself and get choked by John Stone.
Yeah, I want that T-shirt though. I went to Stone's Public House and I got choked out and this lousy T-shirt.
Yeah, right. And all I got was choked out.
All right. Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.